Hey, well, welcome to the Jewish Road Podcast. My name's Matt Davis.
Hey, and I'm Papa Ron.
Yes, you are. If you could actually see him, he's wearing the hat to prove it, but you can't, so that's okay. Hey, this is part of our Israel series, and what we have done when we were in Israel, we got to stop all over the place, and we had to have some conversations.
Yeah.
And this one was with who?
This was with Chaim Malespin.
That's right.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about Chaim.
Oh, Chaim is a terrific guy. He's got great energy. He shows up everywhere. He is a high-ranking guy in the IDF.
Sergeant Major.
Sergeant Major in the IDF. And he's down in Gaza.
You were just saying, though, something about it. What did you say? How does he start his day?
He shows up everywhere. He starts his day. I think he kisses his wife goodbye in the morning, goes to Gaza, goes to war down there, and he's back for lunch. And then he goes back, and then he shows back up at dinner. And he's always got his gun strapped to him wherever he shows up.
It was one of those things. Everywhere we went, I bet you we saw him in 7 different places over our 2 weeks in the land.
Yeah.
And I mean, he showed up. He was there when the conversation you're about to hear was on the Sea of Galilee at our hotel. We just set up, and you'll actually be able to see a video of that later if you want to check that out on our YouTube page. But we literally sat down with him, and we had to wait a few minutes because he was literally coming back from a mission that morning in Gaza, said, I'm coming, and you can see the dust on my shoes and the dust on my gun is the dust from Gaza.
Yeah. And so Chaim is just that he's a soldier, he's a father, he's a husband, and he is a great guy who also has a ministry in Israel.
Yeah, and so we'll get to hear about some of that at the Aliyah Return Center. In fact, not only that, but he has a lot of ministries. There's a lot of stuff going on. And, where ministry took place in the Galilee with Jesus 2,000 years ago, Chaim and some of our other friends, Joshua Aaron and Zev Sigulim, all these guys who are really forming this contingent of people there in the Galilee, in Tiberias, to really be doing ministry in a significant way. Listen in. They're gonna hear some good stuff.
Yeah, well, let's hear from Chaim.
Here we go.
Shalom, Chaim Malespin.
Shalom to you, Matt Davis,
Hey.
and Ron,
Hey.
the Father, the Son. What a blessing it is
Boy.
to be together with both of you at the Sea of Galilee, historic, prophetic, and it's my home.
It's great to be in your backyard.
That's right.
I'm so glad.
And we're here, but you actually weren't here last
Yeah.
night. You had a little bit of a schlep from somewhere. Where'd you come from?
Yeah, so I have been serving in Lebanon, which is not too far away, but I've now been moved back to Gaza. So I'm a Sergeant Major in the Combat Engineer Corps Elite Unit for Special Missions. And so, yes, hours ago, there I was at a tunnel entrance, which is an attack tunnel. These attack tunnels actually are designed to pop up at different places in Israel and have maybe a suicide squad, have a group of jihadists.
Just out into the land.
Yeah. What do they call those miscreants? Come out and kill and murder. So we don't want that to happen. So we put the stop on it by blowing up these tunnels, finding them, mapping them, where they go, and blowing them up. That's what I was actively a part of with our elite team yesterday.
What part of Gaza is that, can you say?
Yeah, then I was at Sajaiya, but yesterday primarily Khan Yunis, and there was a big, amazing, let's call it elite unit movement in Khan Yunis. Right when I was there, I was dealing with a tunnel, and they were actually doing either a rescue or an assassination attempt of a Hamas leader. All these things are extremely dangerous. You're encountering not just let's call it mines, or anti-tank mines, or anti-personnel mines, or RPGs, rocket-propelled grenades, or TATP, TNTP, every kind of death trap that could possibly exist out of a tunnel, out of the rubble, suicide drones, many a thing. And we have to face all that every day for the last about 600 days at the time of this filming.
Yeah.
How are you able to detect all of those different things?
You don't always succeed in doing that. A very good friend of mine, he's a Jewish believer. Love this guy, his name, and I'm not going to say his name, but he's just a wonderful guy and lost a whole bunch of guys under his command. I'm also a commander, and that's very sad when that happens. You feel like they're your children. and that happened as they were driving in this area, scanning a very dangerous area, and there was mines there. The mine, it was actually a claymore mine, but it killed a bunch of his guys. Last word I told them is I talked to them about the soul going up or going down. One of the last words I said to that group, and I was like, guys, you want your soul to go. And I do believe that these are big discussions about a big move in this land where people are starting to search for meaning, purpose for God. And that's why the Messiah patch was such a big thing until the high commander of the army, the minister of defense says, no, not the minister of defense, our top commander says, no, only army approved patches, no more Messiah patches. That was a big sweeping move as everybody was putting these on and now everyone had to take them off. But my point is I've been for about 600 days deployed consecutively, with little breaks, but consecutively in those arenas.
As we're coming over here, there's a lot of our friends are saying, we had lots of appointments and schedules and things to do while we're here. Everybody's being called down into the reserves. And there's another move called Gideon's Chariot right now.
That's the big operation,
And so, there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of talk going on in the world of what's happening. Obviously, our President Trump, and there's Middle East and Qatar. All of this stuff is going on.
Right.
But the hope is, and what we're hearing from the people is, we want our hostages back. We were just yesterday in the hostage square in Tel Aviv, and that's really the heartbeat of the people. Is there hope? There's 58 hostages out there. They say somewhere around 20 are still alive. Do you have hope that you will succeed in this mission?
I would say that there is, in every mission, there's a lot of factors for successful mission success. All guys are God ordained with this purpose-driven life. You have a purpose, you want to complete your mission, you want to do it well, to great success, you don't want to fail in your mission. And in the Army, that whole element of every person is taken to its top performing level. And so for a mission to succeed, you need a lot of things. Let's just say you got a bunch of parachuters. They're going to need women to go in the warehouse and fold the parachutes. Make sure that they're all going to open in the correct way when the wind comes through this little pack, and you don't just die. So that's a careful fold, which has proven that it works. And that small mission of folding a parachute is part of a larger mission of these guys parachuting and giving fire, which is part of another mission of these guys are properly trained as tank gunners, tank drivers. They're going to be awake on time. They're going to be in their tank. They're going to be there before the dawn. They're going to be positioned, giving cover fire for any attack from this area. And then these guys are going to come and deal with the tunnel threat with their sensors and, from this direction. And they're not going to hurt each other. And you have also the women on the cameras, which are back in Israel. Technically, all of it's part of the Promised Land, but I mean politically proper Israel right now. And then they're going to be seeing with the drone, the Predator drone that's flying. So all this is part of mission success. I would say military pressure, all that is called military pressure. That is very important for mission success. Negotiations mean nothing without something to back them. If you say, I will cook breakfast for you gentlemen tomorrow, and then you don't get any food and you don't get it, and you do not, there's nothing, no tangible, it's just words, that's very quickly realized. So mission success takes a collective more than just words. Netanyahu can speak words, but there needs to be military pressure. We're seeing that the combination there is working, and we're seeing that they offered to release 10 hostages now, and then they didn't, and they have a thing where they lie to anyone who's not a non-Muslim. They're allowed to use tawfiq, which is it's a word that is taught used by Muhammad as a way to conduct war and to conduct jihad, and they're jihadists, so they abide by that, and that is lie to them and say you'll do something, then don't do it. But we need to make sure that we are doing what we say, and this Gideon's Chariot, I believe, is going to be the greatest operation to put military pressure, and eventually will lead to either the full release of the hostages, or full release of the hostages and the dismantling of the Hamas entirely and their infrastructure.
Yeah, that kind of was along the lines of the question I had, because there's talk about ceasefire, and what does that look like? It seems like a ceasefire always ends up for a periodic, cessation of, war and combat, which usually leads to enough time for them to rearm. And what is the take on, what can you tell with regard to a ceasefire or just totally wiping out the presence of Hamas there?
I think that you're touching on a very hard issue, a deep issue in everyone's heart. And that issue is, let's call it being played with. A soldier, a reservist, is willing to serve and to risk everything, his very life. There's no greater love that anyone has than this, that he's willing to lay down his life to protect his family, his friends, his land, and bring security to his land and bring his brothers and sisters home from the mouth of the wolf, in the lair of the fox, the den of the evil one that has taken the sheep from the sheepfold of Israel. And a good shepherd, I said this on Fox News, I say this on TBN, CBN, all the channels, I'll tell them this. Indian news, I've been on like everything. And I say, guys, we are good shepherds. We are supposed to be good shepherds, following the great shepherd of Israel. We're supposed to be little shepherds of Israel. And part of shepherding the flock of Israel is not just feeding them, taking them to green pastures and still waters, Psalms 23. But you got to also have the rod and the staff. They also comfort me, you know? Your rod and your staff. And that is protecting the sheep. And if the lion, the bear, the wolf will take the little lamb into its wolf lair. Well, no, you got to go in that lair, in the darkness, in the danger, at risk of your own life. But now you want to do that, but you don't want to be messed with. You don't want to have, you don't want to feel that you're just being jerked around. And Israel often does feel like we're not able to do our job, because it's like we have our one hand tied, two hands tied behind our back. Whereas, let's just say, for example, when America does a war, they're just like, boom, we're going to do this. We're going to go to, Afghanistan, take out bin Laden. We take him out. We're doing this. We're doing that. And of course, war is never easy. War is never straightforward for anyone. But it's like every second you're doing things that are not helping you win the war. We feel like we're being asked to do things in Israel that are not helping win the war. We realize in order to not just supply Hamas with all kinds of gear, medical, all kinds of food and all that to them, then you got to have sterile areas where we want to give lots, ask any Israeli, we want to give lots of aid to the Gazans in a sterile area. Sterile area is utmost importance, because that way the Hamas doesn't just come on those trucks. Hundreds and hundreds of trucks. I film it. A lot of my videos that I do, you might have seen some of them. Inside Gaza, inside Lebanon, I'll film what's going on. This is dangerous. This is also, I have the guy giving cover fire sometimes, and you'll hear gunshots sometimes. And sometimes I'll have, say, guys, I am not a propagandist. Nobody is telling me what to say. I am a completely free person, like a journalist, really, just giving what I see and also giving a Bible verse and saying, you know, this scripture, which we all have, is true, and I see this matching with it, and I'll put that in the end of it. But so to answer you is, if you have one hand tied behind your back and you say, no sterile areas. I don't know if you know, but Canada, right now, and you have France, and you have the UK, United Kingdom, England, have come together and made a document from the federal government, from the prime ministers. This is Macron, this is Carney from Canada, this is, the top of the top have said, if Israel doesn't end the war and essentially leave Hamas in power, if Israel doesn't do what Hamas wants, leave them in power, that's what they want. If you don't do what Hamas wants, we're going to use concrete force, they said. And they're not talking about cement. They're talking about, we're going to use solid force against Israel. What does that mean? Does it mean just sanctions? Does it mean military force? Are they declaring war on Israel?
What are they saying?
So you think about this. They didn't say if Hamas doesn't release our innocent hostages from, women, children, from the tunnels of torture. If they don't release them, we're going to use excessive force. They didn't say that. They said if Israel doesn't do what the Hamas wants, we agree to aid absolutely in sterile areas. We don't want to just make sure Hamas is bettered and furthered, so we're realizing that there's a lot of this working with a hand behind our back, and it's hard. It's harder than doing a normal, and it drags it on. And I'll tell you what, the dragging it on, like you said, is hard for all of us. It's hard for the Gazans too. Even let's say there's some innocent Gazans. It's hard for them too. This whole thing is not helpful to anyone. dragging it on. It's better, what I would say it's better to do is not all these political games or position, what is called power positionings, or even trying to virtue signaling to make oneself look good or whatever. No, let Israel quickly and decisively, 6-day war, we're good at 6-day wars.
Yeah.
Why does it have to be 600 days?
Yeah.
Why can't we just, boom, there'll be it'll be less slow and concise, and please move to this area. No, so we're clearing this whole thing, move to a safe area. Whoever doesn't move is part of the combatants.
Yeah.
If you want to not be a combatant, then move to a safe area.
I was with you spring of 2023, and we went on a flurry through Tiberias of all the stuff that you're doing. I remember coming home from that night feeling exhausted and tired because you're a mover and shaker. 600 days in, you've got to be tired.
Very much.
You're probably not sleeping well, and even just the tension of what's going on all the time. But what sustains you? You're not a normal Israeli soldier. You're one that walks with the Lord. How have you seen the Lord show up and sustain you? What is that like to be a believer here in Israel as a soldier as well?
Well, great question. Great question. I do think that in the same way with the Aliyah Return Center charity and the Faithful Galileans, that's the Advocacy for Israel charity, raising goodwill ambassadors for Israel. If I didn't see God in not only that, but in the army as well, if I didn't see God in it, I probably would have given up hope. I probably would have, the going on your own human energy, I'd say, it would be gone a long time ago. It'd be gone after 1 year. I'm talking almost 600 days here. So going on 2 years.
Yeah.
Human energy would be gone. But because I see, and every day I'll bring a verse and I'll say, do you realize that, for example, the giants were in the promised land, filled throughout the promised land? They're descendants of fallen angels. And, and so these giants sided with the enemy. They sided with anything that's against the covenants of God for Israel, the plan of God for Israel to be a blessing in the world, a light to the nations. They sided against that. Goliath wasn't there saying, how can I help build the temple, guys?
Right.
I got big hands. I can build the temple. No, he was saying, I'm going to kill David. I'm going to kill the ancestor of Yeshua. I'm going to kill the seed of hope. That's the giant. And they were defeated everywhere except Gaza, it says in the book of Joshua. Gaza, they were never defeated. They lived, so you sense, and I'm not saying they're Philistines. They're not Philistines. Palestinians are not Philistines. Right. No relation. Those are essentially, the word Philistine means invader.
That's right.
They invaded from Greece, from the Aegean Sea. And they're light-skinned white colonizers, essentially, that invaded Israel.
Right.
And that's what Palestinian means.
Which is what Israel's accused of, right?
Yeah,
Funny
but
enough.
that's essentially the name that these Arabs have taken on the identity they've taken, and in a spiritual sense, they've taken this identity which is based off of anti-Israel.
And the promise of God.
Yeah, and the giants took on that identity. See what I mean?
Yeah.
They chose that as their identity and made that their thing. The word Palestinian is like anti-Israel. It doesn't have to be. It wouldn't have to be. The British, when they called it this whole area of Israel, the British and the Romans, back since that day, changed the name of Israel for this whole area, the Levant, or it didn't have to be, but that's where they've taken it. So in a spiritual sense, I say I see God at work protecting us. Doesn't mean that no friends of mine have ever died. No, I've had to bury many friends. And I go to the grave and I put my hand on the dirt. I'll do that. Maybe shed some tears, but I'll read these verses that, I'll just read God's promises over Israel. He'll never slumber nor sleep. It says all of Israel will be saved. It says these things are real. I have to hold on to these words as real. And when I summarize every day, I'll just say about PTSD. I mean, if I hear a loud boom, I'll go into, there's fight or flight. I'll usually go into fight. A loud sound, But I'll tell you what is that when I don't bottle it all up, when I actually share on these videos, so you can check them out on Aliyah Return Center, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, whatever, TikTok. So I don't bottle it up. I release it to God, because maybe you guys might not know this, but there is nowhere in the Bible that it says, "Be still and know that I am God." Did you know that? It says, "Harpu," release. Release. You're holding something tight. Harpu v'du'u, release and know that I am God. I don't know how they got the translated "be still." Be still is like, I'm still, it's good, and maybe releasing is part of being still, maybe. If I'm still, maybe I'm releasing, maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm walking and not being still and releasing. The point is releasing it to God and knowing that He is God. So that's what I do every single day, and that has really helped me to maintain His perspective through it all.
Yeah. You're really hitting on a dynamic here that while we're observing and we're witnessing war taking place, there's a political dynamic to it,
right.
but there's what we call also a theo-political dynamic.
God's dynamic
to it.
through this,
Yeah, and so there's a spiritual end to the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I do really thank God through all this for something very interesting, that everything had a mask on it. Yeah. We didn't know what the Houthis were doing in Yemen. That's a terror group, Ansar Allah, or the Houthis. They're occupying Yemen. Yemen are great people, great food. Why are they occupying it? I didn't know what was going on there beforehand. Iran, we thought, oh, they're trying to go for a nuclear weapon, and they say we want to bomb Israel and bomb America with our nukes. We want death to America, death to Israel. Little Satan, Israel, big Satan, America, and they got all this stuff they say, but what Jewish people often will say is, they're crazy. They're crazy. They're crazy. Well, no, they're definitely crazy, but what they're saying has something behind it. They really are getting a nuclear weapon, for reals.
Yeah,
okay?
when they say it, you got to believe them.
You got to believe them. They literally are getting a nuclear weapon. They might have one right now, as we're speaking. Okay, and we didn't know what's going on in Iraq with the Badr force. We didn't know what they were all building in Syria. The whole Assad thing and how they were a proxy of Iran. And now with Julani, we'll see what happens with the whole Al-Shara, HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. And then, of course, what the Hezbollah were doing. We knew, I think they're doing something, but who knew they had entire Conquer the Galilee plan set, maps, where every single home was, every single base, and exactly how to hurt us. Who knew what would be happening with Gaza, with not just Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Jabhat al-Nusra, Al-Qassam. Oh, come on. This is the mask, though, has come off. Now people, when they don't have to play a guessing game, they can now make a calculated and educated decision and say, do I stand with a jihadism way of life? And maybe people say, we want to have, what is it called? The warlord lifestyle.
Right.
That's what that is. The strongest, biggest sword-carrying, gun-carrying, whatever, mafia gang leader is how the world can be run, like it is in some countries in Africa. Or you can have what we call the Judeo-Christian way of life, which is based on morals. There's human value, human life matters, democracy, freedom. We could choose now. And strangely enough, there are those who see openly in front of them, and they choose the other one.
If we're going to look at the end of the story, I was listening to an interview with a guy in the White House in America. He is of Lebanese descent, but he's American.
Right.
Counterintelligence in the White House, in the government. And one of the things that he said, we are not going to shoot and kill our way out of this problem here in the Middle East.
Right.
There's an ideology. We can win the next battle, and still ultimately there's a war that we would have behind us.
True.
The only way that this changes is that the Lord has to return, and there has to be a salvation.
Yes.
There has to be salvation that springs up all around us.
That's a deep perspective. I had a bunch of people over. They weren't of any faith. They were atheists, essentially. And I had them over, and they said, tell us what you think about the way, like agreeing with you, the way to solve all this. And I said, well, there's three main ways that I see people can look at things. One is the political approach, which is, let's make a deal. Let's make a deal. We'll give them a deal. They can't, I'll make them an offer. They can't refuse. That's political deals. But that's based on that they want that deal. It's based on, if I offer, you want a Starbucks? You never tried Starbucks? I'll give you 10 Starbucks. Wow. Yeah. That's based off the premise that they're interested in the American way.
Or they're going to tell the truth.
That they're going to tell the truth, or that they're even interested in the American way. The Americans they want the American dream, which is, I want to live my life, and I won't hurt you if you don't hurt me. Let's just chill, that's the you get rich, I'll get rich. But that's not their perspective. They have a very different goal in life. They don't want the American dream. That's never been their goal. They didn't even ask for a Palestinian state. They don't even want they've never said, you never heard Hamas once say, we want a state next to Israel.
Right.
They've never said it once. No. They've said a lot of things. How come they can't? They've said, we want from the river to the sea, we want the entire Levant, the entire what was then called Palestine to be the British, Turkish area, Roman area, Israel area, to be all theirs. And for the Jews, where do they go? They just disappear. So my point is, one is political solution. It's not really a solution. You know how we know it's not? We tried it in 2005 when I went in the army. We completely exited Gaza entirely. We tried that. Here you go. Do whatever you want to do. Enjoy the beachfront property and the fancy cars, the gold district in Gaza, the gold market.
What did they do?
You have the results are there. We can see exactly what they did is they just taught terror for 18 years and then did terror. Taught terror and did terror. And while they're having good jobs in Israel, while they're able to, they're not working in Egypt, they're not getting anything from Egypt, but in Israel they'd come in and enjoy and not an open air prison. They had the gold market. They have all kinds of amazing stuff. You can look at videos of Gaza before their launch of massacre on us, on innocent peaceniks.
So that's political. That's
political.
One.
Then you have military. Military is a very simple approach. It just says, hey, you shoot me, I shoot you 2 times harder. You want to knife me? 2 times harder. Well, then we make bigger jails. Then we make then we get more bullets. Then we get more bombs. And you know what? That actually does give a temporary solution. Does give a temporary quiet for a time. How long is that time? God knows.
Enough for evil to be reloaded again.
Enough until it just comes back. So that also doesn't really work. We saw that as well in former wars that Israel's fought. We could see the results of the military. Then there's the last one that nobody talks about, except you, that I've heard of, the kingdom approach.
Right.
And why does no one really talk about it? Because I don't know why. But it's the only thing that can really, really work. And that is, because you're not dealing just with Gaza. That's what we're saying. If it was just Gaza, you could do the Trump plan. I think that would work. For just Gaza, remove everybody, rebuild. Whoever wants to dwell in peace can come back.
Right.
That's the Trump plan. I think that's a wonderful plan if you're talking just about Gaza. But I think we all know that flag that they wave is really we want to change the globe. We want the globe, not Gaza. They're not going to suddenly, let's just say we said, sure, once again, we leave Gaza entirely. It's a Palestinian state.
Right.
Do you think, is anyone so naive to really think it's peace on earth? That's all that anyone ever wanted. That's what they had in 2005.
Yeah.
It's not what anyone wants.
It's almost as if they want, driven by Satan, they want the same thing that God wants, only they want it through hatred, where God does it the exact opposite way.
It's true. God wants to govern the world, and the knowledge of the glory of the Lord will cover the earth like the waters cover the sea. It says in Haggai. So the same way is that they want their to cover the earth, their flag to cover the earth. But just to finish what I was saying about the kingdom approach, is Isaiah 19 talks about there's one God, not called Allah, the God of Israel, and this is whom essentially all will serve and will dwell in peace. Will dwell in peace because it says, Egypt, my people. Assyria, that's Assyria, literally right there. Over the Golan Heights. Golan Heights was at one time Syria. They were shooting us constantly. That buffer zone is now part of Israel. Golan Heights. And over there is where Julani is, Al-Shara, right over HTS.
Yes.
So Syria, my handiwork, Israel, my inheritance. You 3 will be in peace, it says in Isaiah chapter 19, towards the end of the chapter.
Egypt, Syria,
so this is
Israel.
And Israel. And they're going to speak the language of Canaan, the language of Hebrew. We're all going to learn Hebrew. So there's a really interesting plan of God to dwell in peace, but that isn't based on what people think in like Oslo, the Oslo Accords. Well, what if I divide you off here? So let's say 20% of the time you do this, 80% of the time you do this, and then we'll switch. And then you divide off here. And I don't want you to talk to you. Come on, separate kids, put a wall, another wall, area A, area B, area C. That not only doesn't work, it's proven that it's detrimental to peace. Not only doesn't bring peace, it's detrimental to peace.
Well, I think the God that we serve, he is not a peacekeeper where you go in your corner, you go in your corner, and now we're never going to touch. God's a peacemaker.
Right.
And he's going to bring unity. There's going to be one kingdom in the end, and he's going to be king. We're about to go out to Tiberias.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I want to show you guys throughout Tiberias action of kingdom in action. That's Arab, that's Jew together, that love one another. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible, and we've seen that. And I'll just finish with this: is we had an Arab guy over, and he said, "I want to tell you a story. Number one Muslim," and I was like, "Okay." He was exaggerating, but he's like, "I know Quran better than any sometimes it's a way to, it's not real. I don't know if that's
Posturing,
factual.
right?
It's
Yeah,
posturing.
yeah.
And I said, and what do you mean to say? We're a little bit like, where's he going with this? And he said, and then I every day curse Israel. Why? Because I wanted to go to heaven, he says. He says he wanted to go to heaven, and he's looking at how to do that. And he said, well, cursing Israel. But he realized one thing. He said, no matter how much zakat, that's the charity I give, no matter how much I do, it's not heaven's not guaranteed in the Quran. Even for the only way that heaven's guaranteed, I'm saying guaranteed, that's killing an infidel.
Yep.
Like say killing one of you.
Yep.
Or me. Okay?
Yep. We're infidels.
And that means you are guaranteed heaven. And he's thought about that, and he said, is that the only way that's guaranteed?
Yeah.
Like guaranteed. The other one is Allah's merciful, it'll work out. He's merciful, it'll work out. But that's the only way that's signed and guaranteed. So there's got to be another way. And he started to look into the Bible. He read the Torah. He read the New Covenant. And then he suddenly, God filled his heart. He said, you won't believe what happened to me. He said, my heart was so full of hate, there was no room for anything else. No one can tell me nothing.
Yeah.
But suddenly, my heart was so full of love, I couldn't fit hate in there. Like he said, it was quite the polar opposite. I was even trying to get hate in there. I couldn't burn a flag. Of Israel or America. I couldn't do it. I had no room for hate in my heart. That's the kingdom, and that's going to work when Arabic-speaking believers will stand up boldly, go into Gaza, set up places to say, we want to tell you about the covenants of God that you can be a part of. You are essentially grafted in, just like all the other nations, grafted into this covenant that God did with Abraham, his friend.
Brother, thanks for being here. I can't wait. We're going to go for a little walk through Tiberias.
Excited.
Let's go
Great.
see it.
Let's go check it out.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
I told you in the beginning that we saw Chaim everywhere we went. And the one thing I kept thinking every time Chaim showed up there with his rifle was Psalm 121. Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan, shomer Yisrael. He who keeps Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. And we started out by saying when we saw Chaim, he showed up to our conversation straight from Gaza. And then he took us all around Tiberias, showing us the ministry he's doing. And then later that night, we got to have dinner with the family. And he was reporting early the next morning for another mission.
Yeah. He's not God, but I think Chaim neither slumbers nor sleeps either.
That's what I had a sense of, God is putting his people, and this is a believer. He's a messianic believer who is there in the army, and he is a light and he's a joy. He's so fun and he's so nice and so energetic that sometimes I even struggle to believe that he's out there fighting a war against the enemy. Like it's just, he's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyhow, hope you enjoyed listening to him, and he's really a great guy.
And when you think about him, and as you're processing this conversation we just had, pray for him. Pray for our soldiers in Israel and IDF that are spread out and defending the very small and narrow borders. But also pray for their family, because one of the things that we got to experience firsthand, we're friends with Deanna, his wife, who. Right. You have all of these women and family members and the kids that are back while these soldiers are going back and forth all the time, not knowing if every time they kiss them is going to be the last time. But there's a lot of faith and fear that's involved in all of that.
Yeah. And what you heard, we spoke to Chaim a couple of weeks ago when we were in Israel, but things are escalating now more so than when we talked to him then.
And by the time that you actually hear this podcast, who knows? Things change so quickly that who knows what's going to be next. So, Chaim, we love you. Thanks for the time together. And we'll be praying for you and praying for the peace of Jerusalem. Shalom.
Shalom.